Mr. President has done extremely very well in road and bridges infrastructure. And I promised that I was going to publish all the projects that are over 10 billion across the entire country. I'm trying to be very correct in what I'm doing, and so that will come next week. And you will be able to see the great things that Mr. President is doing. No section of the state or country is left out in his infrastructure development, road and bridges wise. And let me announce, so that you also be able to track what you are doing, that the Abuja-Kano, there are two lots. The first lot is 118 kilometers, 256 billion. 75 billion was already paid by Mr. President, 30%, and work is going on. We've done over 30% of that section 1. Section 2 is 164 kilometers, that is 502 billion, and Mr. President has just released 30%, which is about 150 billion that will hit the account of the contractor in the next 2 days. And so we have directed the contractor to expose his commitment in not less than 6 sections doing the same thing, because we gave 14 months for that work to be done. Not also done, Mr. President, released also 30% of the Enugu-Onitsha road, which is 72 kilometers. That's 150 billion. So 45 billion is being released to the contractor. We also have the Abuja-Kano rehabilitation, 22 billion, 30% is being paid for the work. Channel, we note that somebody was demarcating me on the washout between Bauchi and Jigawa. And fortunately for me, the president has since released money to cater for all the 4 sections of the road between Bauchi and Jigawa, and also released money through Sukuk for the Gombe projects. That has been done. And it's also important to announce that the Nembe Brass, there is 156 billion. The president has released 30% for that. When that job is done, there will be no more either boat or flight to the oil rigs. So it's a very good news that is going on. Of course, we are about completing the Bodo Boni, which is 35 kilometers, 200 billion by Julius Berger. So that is a big plus for the Niger Delta oil rigs operation. And of course, the much talked about Ibadan, Ife, Ilesha, that is 108.4 kilometers by 2. The president has released 30% of that money. The Ilesha to Akure to Benin is 256 kilometers by 2, 761 billion. 30% of that project has been released. We are working on the unfortunate incident that happened at Kefi flyover. I visited there. We lost 3 lives there. We've settled with the families. There are no pressing charges. It's very unfortunate. And we have started the reconstruction of the bridge. One carriageway has been closed down to traffic. And so there's so much to talk about in terms of what Mr. President is doing. Lagos Shagamu Tore project has been awarded and 30% is being released. I will not bore you because you are going to see things for yourself, but we always and anytime, any day, stage a debate with anybody that wants to darken council without knowledge in terms of roads and bridges infrastructure. The president has done extremely very well. And I'm very grateful to him for the selfless services he's rendering to our nation, because I've always said that when a road is disconnected, you can't move from one state to the other. It's tantamount to being in prison because your movement is restricted. But with this project being done, the GDP of states are being improved upon. The 85% of the first section of Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, I know what has happened to the GDP of Lagos, even though we've not totally deployed on that route. And that's why I maintain that these 4 legacy projects are investments. They are not just road construction. But let me not bore you. Let me just face the business of today, because the Honourable Minister will say I'm talking too much. But because much is given to me, I have to talk too much. Now, the business of today, but it's good for me to tell you what Mr. President is doing so that you'll be able to face the contractors and, of course, face me in tracking the progress of these projects. It's very important. And so today, FEC approved the review of project in Poronu and Adamawa, and that's Bunuma Road project. And it was initially awarded in 2020, 45 kilometer, 15.43 billion. And today is being reviewed to 61.763 billion, keeping the 45 kilometer for Biu Newman Road in Boronu / Adamawa. The second project that was approved was the Maraba Kefi Road. The Maraba Kefi Road is 43.6 kilometers and is dualized. And so when we came on board, we had to change the dynamics of the projects. We decided to use concrete, inner shoulder, outer shoulder, and then milled the center, that's the carriageway, and they put stone base and then put binder and wearing. Now, this project was awarded towards the end of last administration in May 23rd, 2023. And so the change of floating of the Naira and the oil subsidy removal affected it. And so what we did is to say, okay, with the available fund of 76 billion, as manifested in an NMPC cash flow, that's what they are committing. So we had to now say, okay, you finish one carriageway and 2 kilometers in the other carriageway, while we are maintaining the other one. And so it's called Ribeme, where we use the available funds to do the project that it could match without changing the configuration of the initial contract sum. FEC has approved that. Today, also in Ikorodu Shagamu Road, a project that was awarded in 2018 and reviewed in March 2023 is about 25% done. So FEC approved the additional 11.423 billion so that the project will be completed. Then the next one is the road in Gashamu Amishi Gogoram Road, and that is in Yobe State, Yobe North, and that is 36 kilometers. A contract was awarded in 2020 for 36.2 kilometers, and it was 14.526 billion. And now it's reviewed to include introduction of binder costs, it wasn't there before, and replacement of pedestrian bridge across the river at Chene 36 with vehicle crossing bridge. Then concrete protection works in swampy areas and increase in VOP requirements. And so the project has been increased by 8.94 billion. Then we have the Sokoto Badagry. You are aware that we had awarded the Sokoto Badagry before now. I think it's in August 2024, and that was 258 kilometers in KB for one carriageway, and that was for a contract sum of 947 billion. That was that time. That amounts to about 2.45 billion per kilometer, and I think that is a wonderful feat that we have achieved, because even some of the regular contracts are awarded more than this amount. And also in KB section 120. So today we have awarded the second carriageway in KB, 258 kilometers, 3 lanes for 961 billion. And then in Sokoto, additional 120 kilometers for 456 billion. So we have complete in Sokoto 220 kilometers by 2, that's 240 kilometers, and that's roughly about 920 billion. And in KB, you have 258 times 2. That's about 516 kilometers. And that is roughly 2 trillions. That is in KB section alone. So FEC approved this construction. And then we have a road that we rescoped, Ado Ekiti, Afe Babalola University Road. And the project was awarded in February 2023 for 35.952 billion and for 40.72 kilometers. Today is being reviewed, and with the available funding, we had to scope it down to 14.4 kilometers for a total contract sum of 9.32 billion. And in the Trans-Hara, which is the third legacy project of Mr. President, the initial contract award was 118 kilometers, and that was for 361 billion, and that is passing from Ebonyi to the Benue border. However, it was discovered that the 35 kilometer that was assumed to have a good sub-base was not good after it was tested. So the contractor has to raise alarm. So we went and did intensive soil test, and so we had to now bring a new alignment of 35 kilometers plus 2 sets of 2 span bridges. So a total of 84 billion was added to initial scope, and the contract length moved from 118 to 121.64 kilometer. And so the total contract sum now is now 445.851 billion. And lastly, the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway section 4A and 4B. 4A is Ogun State, taking from where the section 2 stopped at Lekki there, and then going to Ondo. We have about 40 kilometer in Ogun State and a 40.35 kilometer in Ondo State. And so the Ondo has gotten to the border between Ondo and Edo State. And that's where we are. And the total kilometer is 80.35 by 2. That is 80.35 kilometer, 6 lanes. And the total contract sum is 1.65 trillion. And it involves removing the pits up to an average depth of 6 meters, replacing it with freshwater sharp sand, and raising the existing ground level by 5 meters, so that no amount of flooding will come near it, and is passing through swampy areas. So these are what FEC approved, and action is now required, so that when you go for inspection, you'll be able to see the progress made. Thank you very much.